Welcome everyone. I'll get things started today. We're lucky to have with us Professor David Patterson to convene today's webinar featuring Professor Dina Porat. Professor Patterson holds the Hillel Feinberg Distinguished Chair in Holocaust Studies at the Ackerman Center for Holocaust Studies at the University of Texas at Dallas. A commissioner on the Texas Holocaust and Genocide Commission, and a member of the Executive Board of Academic Advisors for ISGAP, the Institute for the Study of Global Antisemitism and Policy. He's a winner of the National Jewish Book Award, the Correct Jewish Award, and the Holocaust Scholars Eternal Flame Award. And he's published more than 35 books and more than 220 articles, essays, and book chapters and topics in literature, philosophy, the Holocaust, and Jewish studies, with his forthcoming work being Shoah and Torah, as well as Elie Wiesel's Hasidic Legacy. And I'll now hand it over to Professor Patterson.
Thanks so much, Ira. Welcome, everyone. I'm very pleased to have you all join us. It's my pleasure to be here on behalf of Charles Small, whom I'm sure you know, the head of ISGAP. We have with us today one of the world's leading scholars in study of anti-Semitism and the Holocaust, Professor Dina Porat, who is the head of the Kantor Center for the Study of Contemporary European Jewry. Dr. Porat has served as the head of the Department of Jewish History of the Rosenberg School for Jewish Studies, the Alfred Slanter Chair in Anti-Semitism and Racism, all these positions at Tel Aviv University. You may know Professor Porat currently to be the chief historian at Yad Vashem, a most distinguished position. Professor Porat is the recipient of numerous awards for her research, her many books. She's a winner of the National Jewish Book Award for her biography of Abba Kovner. She won the Bahat Prize for her recent book on Jewish revenge after World War II. She's a recipient of the Raoul Wallenberg Medal in 2012. She has been a visiting scholar at Harvard and Columbia here in the US. So we're very fortunate to have with us today, as I said, one of the world's leading scholars in these areas to share with us some of her thoughts on the question of whether the Corona-inspired anti-Semitism is a new phenomenon. And if you have questions, you can use your Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and after Dr. Porat shares with us her thoughts about this, we'll have a Q&A session. Thank you. Dr. Porat, please.
Thank you for having invited me. Thank you for this very kind introduction. And indeed, I chose this topic because this is a question that I believe is on many minds, not only on mine. And this has a relation. It is related to what is going on regarding Corona-inspired anti-Semitism. I think I should call it this way, Corona-inspired anti-Semitism. And my main question is whether this is a new phenomenon. We are all aware of it, reading, disgusted at the sight of the caricatures, looking at what is happening in demonstrations. The question is whether it is a new phenomenon. I would say for a start that once you look carefully at the contents of the expressions of this Corona-inspired anti-Semitism, these expressions continue former motives and also the image of the Jew. In these two regards, I do not think it's new. It is a continuation. And let me elaborate on this for a moment. One is, a first element takes you back to the Middle Ages, where Jews were accused of poisoning the wells during the Black Plague, etc. And there have been other accusations along Jewish history regarding poisoning up until the doctor's trial in Stalin's days. It's a constant motive. Another one is the attitude towards religious Jews, which right now, especially in the States, in Brooklyn, but as well in Israel as well, Mea Shearim, Bnei Brak, etc., there are expressions that blame Orthodox Jews for being careless, not being obedient, and not following the instructions, and the instructions are very clear, but they are not followed. And these expressions say that that religious Jews feel themselves part of the chosen people, so they are high above the following of regulations. It does not include them, it does not oblige them, and so they can go on infecting others because they are above. On the other hand, they are infected themselves. And what do they say about this? That religious Jews are being infected as a punishment for not having accepted Jesus Christ at the time. And as we know from Matthew, from the gospel, it says, Damo aleinu ve'al baneinu, his blood will be on us and on our children, which means that today's generations are being punished, not only those during Second Temple, for not having accepted Jesus. A third motive is it's not only the poisoning of wells and not accepting Jesus, being responsible, of course, for his crucifixion, but you also have a deviation, a mutation of the protocols of the elders of Zion nowadays, because many of the expressions put together are actually saying that Jews are undermining the welfare, the security, the stability of societies and countries in the world by diffusing the virus on purpose. And why is it so? Because these old protocols of the elders of Zion accusation of the wish to control the world is being again expressed and shown and demonstrated by Jews. And after undermining the security, the welfare, etc., they would, by inventing a vaccination and a medicine for this virus, they would profit enormously, unbelievably, from selling it to all the world. We are working on that in Israel, but in many other places, all the world is looking for a vaccination and for a medicine. But this accusation, the third motive, is very much there. There is also a continuation of anti-Zionist motives, according to which they have an expression which is called COVID-1948. 1948, the year Israel was established, and the connection of COVID-1948 means that Zionism, not just Jewish communities, not just religious Jews, but Zionism and the state of Israel are definitely involved in distributing the virus. And what are we supposed to gain from that? Weakening of the countries in the Middle East. Iran is very much vociferous on this topic. They say, look at us, We have thousands of people dead. And in Israel, just a few hundreds. Well, don't you understand the connection? Of course. They are spreading it among us, trying to weaken the Middle East, and so does Turkey, in which it is also, these expressions are definitely rampant. One more motive and continuation, but here I also see something new, to which I'll come in a minute, is using symbols and terms of the Holocaust. You know that now in Munich, it is forbidden to go on demonstrations with a yellow star on your shirt or on your arm. It has been used constantly. And why is that? An unvaccinated person is called the Jew, Jude, one who is spreading the virus because he's unvaccinated, and the Jew because he's a Jew. And so those who oppose vaccination go with yellow stars demonstrating their objection to vaccination by that. That's, well, and then there is this comparison of people being closed at home to Jews having been closed in ghettos. And the Arbeit macht frei, the famous writing over the gate of Auschwitz, is being used to say that when you are out of your prison at home or your camp at home, you are free, you are free. So, you know that the virus has a new name, which is called Holocaust. Holocaust and coughing. And coughing, holo-cough. It's a new expression as well. Holocaust. And another one I saw, I couldn't believe my eyes, a banner in a demonstration, United States, I think it was Illinois, and it said, synagogues are closed, gas chambers are open. So it is the Holocaust motives are being used on a daily basis. Now, having said that, we are saying that the motives and the image of the Jew that they create are a continuation. But the question is also, it's twofold. One is there anything new about this phenomenon? And I would say that taking a good look at what is being said and demonstrated and the flow of caricatures, each of them vicious than the other, we have been through 3 months. It started towards the end of February. It's March, April, and May. Okay, we're already in June. March, April, and May, 3 months of an intensity of these expressions that has been unknown for quite a while. It's not that anti-Semitism was not unknown. It was unknown, that's for sure. There is a rise. The ADL declared the highest rise in the United States. The Kantor Center declared a rise in 20% recently in the violent anti-Semitism, but the intensity that we are witnessing, the scope, because it comes from many countries, and not only that, it comes from levels of society that you would not have attributed to. We first, at the beginning, at March, we said, well, these are extremist right-wingers, these are very conservative, ultra-Christian, these are certainly Islamists, but now a few, to a very lower level, extreme left, but now we don't say that anymore because you see it coming from levels of general society that is not identified necessarily with one of these political groups or inclinations that we have seen. The virus has caused countries to close themselves in, to close borders. There is no traffic now, no flights among countries. Borders are closed. Countries are looking at foreigners with a very suspicious way, in a very suspicious way. Anyone who is a foreigner is automatically suspected. And it brings more, not only patriotism, nationalism, it brings ultra-nationalism, and it's so the suspicion, the fears, the anxieties that these viruses caused bring about the necessity to find someone to blame, and the necessity is stronger and more acute than it has been before. So I believe that the intensity, the wide scope are different than it has been a few months before. And also I would say the Jewish communities, Jewish institutes are very much on the alert and are publishing reports. Every other day there is a new report. We are also publishing reports on a weekly basis from the material that we get from 60 places and organizations, but there are many others. So there is the Jewish community, Jewish leaders, institutes, do not ignore and do not do not look aside, but publish report, appeal to leaders, to security agencies, to law enforcement, because this, I would say that all this put together is not just expressions of opinions, it's incitement. It's an incitement against a certain body, the Jewish people, with Israel, of course, a Jewish state. It's an incitement because it says that we are out to infect and to profit, which is a terrible accusation to say. Another point, and it will be my last one because I know you wanted me to speak like 10, 15 minutes. Nevertheless, having said that there is intensity and the flow of vicious caricatures, and that it is an incitement, let's put this in proportion, because this anxiety and the fears that are felt by millions and millions the world around also pinpoint others to be blamed. First of all, China and Chinese. According to a very good, really an excellent survey that the Oxford University has published, half of the people participating in the survey accused the Chinese, 20% the Jews, and the other 20% the Muslims. But which means that okay, 1 out of 5 people in the UK blames the Jews, but 80%, the other 80% do not. So the Chinese are being accused. Bill Gates is being accused in hallucinating manners. Generation 5, G5 stations are being burned in Europe, in Western Europe, because they say that these posts of the G5 new cellular are lowering and weakening the ability of the body to resist the virus, which is, but it is going on, and dozens of such posts have been burned. So it's Bill Gates, and it's G5, and it's the Chinese. And in the Muslim world, they accuse Israel. Of course they accuse Israel. That's their bread and butter. But they also say that Allah is punishing the infidels and all those who left the true way of Islam, and now they should all come back to the true way and be good believers. The Sunnis say that Iran, a Shiite or country, of course, is being punished, not because of the Jews, but because of all it has done in the Middle East to Sunni countries. Others accuse ISIS, for instance. ISIS is dying to see the West weakened so that they will come again and have the terrorist attacks put again on the strongest level possible. So it goes in many ways. What I'm saying is that there is here a full picture that goes worldwide, and each sees his own interest, his own beliefs. It's not just the Jews. Of course, it is, and we have to take care, and we have to monitor, and we have to be very much on the alert. But let's also see not only the former motives and the image of the Jew, but what is new and what should be put in proportion. Thank you.
Thank you, Dina. That was excellent. You, as always, your insights run very deep. I do have at least one question about what exactly is the anti-Semite anti? What exactly is the Jewish contagion? It's not just that the Jews are the source of contagion, they are themselves a contagion.
Yep.
Right. Now, Alfred Rosenberg, Nazi ideologue, once said that the Aryan Geist, the mind or the spirit, was poisoned not just by Jewish blood, but by Judaism, because the ism is the blood, like a disease. Judaism is a disease. And you did mention religious Jews being targeted.
Yeah.
Not just by non-Jews, but by some Jews too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because of not being careful enough.
So is that, I mean, what is, do you see any connection here with Rosenberg's statement that the contagion is Judaism? And the Jews who spread Torah, who spread Judaism, who spread a certain way of thinking and teaching, and not just a virus, or for example.
Yeah.
You have thoughts about that?
Well, thank you for the question. What you are saying, I believe, is that the Jews are not being looked at only as individuals, or even not just as a collective, but also as a kind of a spirit, a culture, a philosophy. Right. That is being attacked as well. And I think you're absolutely right, because the accusation is not just a biological or a practical one. They're running around and diffusing the virus. You know that from the United Emirates in the Gulf, there came an article saying Israel will find the solution. Israel, the Jewish mind, the Jewish brain, and they said it positively, the Jewish brain will bring us a medicine, a vaccination, etc. So what you see is not just biological practical accusations, but a certain perception of Jews as being thoughtful, as being very much connected to science, to modernity, of having capabilities that others do not have. And when you think a bit deeper about these protocols of the Elders of Zion, you also see that the Jews are being treated, or at least thought about, as an entity that is not just different, but that it has talents, mind, goals that go worldwide and are different than the others. With your permission, I'd like to mention
Sure.
that the vaccination against polio in the 1950s was found by two Jews,
Right.
Savin and Salk. And they refused to write it on the name, saying we wouldn't earn a penny from that. It belongs to the children of the world. But this has been forgotten.
Yes. Let's go to some of the questions that are coming in. We have a question from Metin Delevi. He says,
Okay.
during the pandemic, the Soros conspiracies resurfaced.
Yes.
Sometimes he is attacked as a Jew. Other times he's attacked for his foundation. Even Netanyahu in 2018-19 and Mr. Trump's entourage sent some messages about Soros. The question is, how can one differentiate if it is anti-Semitism or something else? I suppose, or something political, maybe.
Well,
I guess the question is how central is anti-Semitism in this reaction, and compared to other motives behind the reaction?
Yeah. Well, it is certainly the attack on Soros that has been going on for a number of years now. Metin is absolutely right. Is definitely, first of all, on a political level, because in Hungary, where he originated, he is considered a very left liberal person supporting the Central European University, which is being harassed now by the Hungarian government. He is not a great lover of Israel. He's on the left side, or very left side, a very liberal-minded side of the political map. And as such, he's attacked from the right, okay? But I would say that this is just one level. What happened recently is, and I think Metin is right in asking whether it is a sort of anti-Semitism and not just political, is that Soros has become himself a kind of a symbol, a kind of an emblem of Jews, because he's rich, he's influential, he has been accused a few years ago of being the spirit behind the waves of immigration to Europe, because thereby exploiting the working power of the immigrants, the huge international companies could have profited, and he owns some of these companies and some of the banks. So he was accused for the wave of immigrants that not swept, but many came to Europe and started the political divisions, etc., etc. And today, it is all put together. It is all put together, and a person with his money, with his influence, is being accused today, definitely with anti-Semitic tones, no doubt, of manipulating the situation behind the scenes. And he has become a symbol of the behind the scenes manipulating Jew. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. We have an interesting question from Andrea Spindel regarding the Chinese.
Yeah.
She says the dissident Chinese-owned newspaper, the Epoch Times, calls COVID-19 the Chinese Communist Party virus.
Okay. Yeah.
For this, they have been vilified as racist, in national media in Canada, Yet I have seen nothing at all exposing the anti-Semitic links to the virus by the media. What is the rationale for the mainstream media ignoring the spread of Jew hatred and blame for the virus?
Okay, I think this question has like two parts. One is the Chinese, okay?
Yes.
I don't have to tell you, many of the accusations against China come from the United States. China is being accused whether it is communist or not. This is beside the point. The question is, as you know, where it started, at what time, and after how much time it was revealed and exposed to the world that there is such a virus in China, etc., etc. Chinese people are Chinese students are being beaten in schools, in universities, in streets. We got a report from Poland where Chinese, South Korean, whoever his eyes are like this, is being beaten. So it is very much there, and it is on the media, as this person, Spencer, who is asking the question, says, it is on the media. But I'm not sure he's absolutely right in saying that mainstream media ignores the corona-inspired anti-Semitism. We are getting it from many sources that are social media rampant, no doubt, but very well-established and well-respected newspapers are reporting about, they're not taking part in it, but they're reporting about anti-Semitism. Let me please come back for half a minute to this same survey that was done by Oxford. A very interesting point they raised that is related to this question. They said that, Jews are being blamed, Muslims, Chinese, half the population blames them, but they also said that what happened during the corona times is that it showed divisions, deep divisions in society, that the lower classes that now are unemployed and out of business and sometimes out of healthcare are blaming not the Jews and not the Chinese and not the Muslims, but the upper classes for bringing the society into a situation in which it can't cope. So it is, and I think this is a very important point. They said that youngsters, people more to the right than to the left, youngers more than elderly, think that these are the establishments, the authorities, administrations that are to be blamed. So I would say that it is there. Perhaps anti-Semitism is as if self-understood, so goes without saying, so it's not too much mentioned in the mainstream media, but it is.
Yes. Well, Gabriel Brom has kind of a follow-up to this. How he asks, this is his question: how can one question China's actions regarding the virus without being racist?
Well,
Soros' actions without being anti-Semitic?
well, why can't someone criticize a country without being a racist? Why not?
China. In the case of China.
Yeah.
I mean, there are questions about how the Chinese handled the virus, right?
Yes, but why is this racism? This is criticism.
Right, but sometimes the criticism is conflated with racism. No.
Well,
so I guess the only thing is just to point that out, maybe.
Could be, but I'm not sure this is outright racism. It is criticism of the way a certain country handled the situation.
Yeah, well, if that's the case, then blaming the Chinese may not be in the same sort of category as blaming the Jews or the Muslims.
Could
Right?
be.
They're different.
Yes, it is different. It is different, definitely, because, yeah, in that regard, the person who asked the question is right. It is different because the Chinese are being blamed recently on a practical basis because of the way they handled it. They kept it a secret before they revealed it, etc., etc. Anti-Semitism, I don't have to tell you, has its long roots along centuries.
Sure.
It is being used, it is being continued. It's not as new as blaming the Chinese. And therefore, it goes deeper and wider. Let me tell you this. If you follow caricatures, you and the participants here, I see there are already some 70 participants. In France, there is a caricature that goes around for a long time now of the former Minister of Health, who happened to be a Jewish lady. And she is being pictured as squeezing a bottle of poison into a well with a magnificent smile.
Wow.
And she was a Minister of Health, okay? Now, why this? This is done because she as if did not prepare France for the epidemic. How could she? She's not a Minister of Health anymore. And because her husband, whose name is Levy, who is a virologist and epidemiologist, went to China in 2017, I think she accompanied him, in order to inaugurate the laboratory in which China is trying to find vaccination. And it is very close to one where it started. So sometimes the Chinese, the accusation against the Chinese and the Jews do conflate together, certainly in this hallucinating case.
Very interesting. Of course, you got the old poisoning the wells motif.
Yes, yeah. She's standing in the caricature by a well, squeezing the poison very happily.
From the Middle Ages, yes. While we're blaming people, Kenneth Fox is asking which groups are blaming the virus on the Muslims? Is that coming from a particular direction, blaming the Muslims?
Yes, well, it comes in countries where Muslim immigration has not been integrated, It is evident in the United Kingdom, as this Oxford survey says, but 20% believe that the Muslims are to be blamed. It also comes in Germany from the right, because again, it comes from where immigration has not been a settled question yet. It's not settled, they are not integrated, they are still foreigners, they are being blamed of trying to maintain their identity, teaching in the mosques in Arabic and not in the local language, etc., etc. So yes, but also I would like to say that one should see the whole picture, because many imams, Muslim imams, are saying that this is a punishment from Allah for all the infidels and those who left Islam, or at least the true way of Islam. So it's complicated. It's not just blaming the Muslims, but the Muslims themselves blaming their infidels for the situation.
Yes, we haven't. You mentioned the Holocaust and
yes.
with the Holocaust. Anita Brahm has a question. She's asking, is ignorance of the Holocaust linked to this type of anti-Semitism?
Yeah, that's a very, yeah. All the questions were very good, and this one too. Thank you. Yes, I think so. We are now, I don't have to tell you, 75 years after the end of World War, Second World War, and it's the third generation that lives now, third generation after the Holocaust. And not a lot is being taught. Now, last week, President Trump signed the Never Again Education Act, you know, about
Yes.
teaching, about having to teach the Holocaust. But there is definitely rampant ignorance in countries where it is not being taught, and even in countries where it is taught, such as parts of Germany, in Austria. In Austria, a survey showed such a level of ignorance of both youngsters and adults that your hair is raising. These are those who perpetrated the Holocaust, and now they don't know anything about it. Yes, of course, I would say she's right. Ignorance has a part in it. The very comparison, I think the very comparison of being closed at home with being closed in a ghetto is certainly pinpoints the fact that you don't know what is a ghetto, or that you were closed in Auschwitz and now you're out. Is your home Auschwitz? So it's the very comparison shows that these people do not really know what they're talking about.
Sure. Also related to the Holocaust, Professor Asher Matatias writes the following. He says, as a survivor of the Holocaust of Greek Jewry, I'm keenly aware of the country's embedded institutional anti-Semitism, even as I follow Greek media in America and in my native land, Greece, who's the lone European opponent of Resolution 181, 1947. Anyway, there's a conspiratorial approach to their belief that Soros, Gates, even Kissinger and the Rothschilds are behind COVID-19 pandemic and the search for mind control through the invention of corona vaccine. And the question is, it's kind of an old one. How does one confront such nonsense, insanity, and indecency? How do we respond to this?
Yeah. How old is Kissinger by now, if I may ask? Kissinger.
How is Kissinger?
No, how old?
How old? He must be 90. 90.
Well, and the Rothschilds are not that active. Well, that's a question. That's definitely a question. How do you confront?
He's 97. 97. He's 97.
Who? Kissinger?
Kissinger is 97.
No, he's 97. Okay, he can't be too active in spreading the virus. But that's a question, because we said, and we can see that Jewish communities, leaders, institutes, monitoring agencies are not just sitting down and watching this happen. They monitor, they publish reports, they notify each other, they notify authorities. When it crosses lines, they go to the law enforcement agencies. There is a Jewish reaction. But how, the question I think goes deeper. How do you take it out of people's minds? I thought, perhaps I was wrong, I don't know yet. You know that in Berlin, the municipality of Berlin has declared an emergency situation in high schools because Jewish students, are being beaten by Muslim students And then there is a full row of Christians, Jews, and Muslims, and the teachers are at loss. So an emergency situation has been declared. And the question to many scholars, etc., was, okay, what do we do? I had a suggestion, and this is that in such classes, or to people who are spreading such opinions, the Rothschild, the Kissinger, etc., can be perhaps approached and can study something about Judaism. It's not only that they don't know anything about the Holocaust. They don't know what is Judaism, who the Jews really are. They have, many times they have never met a Jew. That perhaps these children in Berlin can go, the class can go to a Jewish pupil's home on Shabbat. And then the class would go to a Muslim home and to a Christian one. They don't know anything about each other. Ignorance is not rampant just regarding the Holocaust, but regarding the entire concept of Judaism, of who we really are. And if I may offer, free of charge, a definition of anti-Semitism, I would say, in answer to this question, that the essence of anti-Semitism is the discrepancy between what Jews really are and between what the anti-Semitic imagination thinks they are.
Thank you. You mentioned that the manifestation of anti-Semitism with regard to the virus is coming from levels of society that
Yes.
are not on, the lunatic fringe or,
Yes.
white supremacists and, the uneducated, ignorant, and so on. In previous webinars that we've had, we have touched on the matter of anti-Semitism in colleges and universities,
Mm-hmm.
Especially North America, Western Europe, and other places.
Yeah.
It comes from very highly educated people in many cases. So
Yeah.
we have a question along this line from Eric Seidel. He says, in recent ISGAP sessions, we've heard how academia, especially in North American colleges and universities, nurtures anti-Semitism. How much of the current virus-related hate do you believe or have heard is originating or being validated in these university classrooms?
Mm.
Do the universities have any connection with this manifestation of anti-Semitism?
Okay. Let me first quote Herzl's diary. Herzl came to be, noticed anti-Semitism, was affected by it and insulted by it, not just by the Dreyfus case, as we are used to believe, that when he saw what is happening to Dreyfus, he turned a Zionist and decided we need a Jewish state. He began looking at anti-Semitism when he read one of Germany's first and foremost anti-Semites, Dühring. And he read his book and he wrote in his diary, excellent German. It is written in excellent German. It is written with so many arguments, so much understanding of today's politics. If such a person on such a high level is an anti-Semite, then there is no hope. It's not just the uneducated or the fringes or what, it's the highest of society. So it is indeed true that along the time, especially in modern times, highly educated authors, influential leaders in the fields of humanities, etc., were outspoken anti-Semites. Is this the case now in the universities? I'm not sure that this is a main source. It is a source of anti-Zionism. The BDS movement is certainly exploiting the situation in order to say, Gewalt, this is Israel again. You know that in the whole Gaza Strip, one person died of the virus, just one. But the accusations and the caricatures, as if the IDF soldiers has nothing better to do but to fire coronaviruses to Gaza, they are rampant, but they hardly have it. But still it is there. So the BDS movement, which is strong in the campuses, is taking advantage and exploiting, but I wouldn't say that, that this is the universities are a main source of the corona-inspired anti-Semitism. They are anti-Zionist, they harass Jewish students, the BDS, but the matter of the corona-inspired anti-Semitism comes from, I wouldn't say lower, but other levels of society that are caught and affected by the fear and the anxiety that such a melody is causing.
Yes, thank you. You did touch on, well, in regard to the question, is this a new phenomenon? And you did mention, we've already mentioned, you know, the poisoning wells, which goes back 1,000 years or more. And we have a question from David Gurovich asking about similarities in the narratives of blaming Jews for the Black Death and the current virus. And I think this is an important question because
yeah, it is. Yeah.
If this is centuries old,
yeah,
and if it's coming from peoples and cultures that have nothing in common except Jew hatred, then it seems to me it's harder to explain it through the current situation or current condition that it is centuries old. I mean,
but there is
some similarity.
I think, I don't know whether this is the David Gurevich that I know that is writing about anti-Semitism in the Orthodox Church. But anyhow, there is a point there, because why were Jews blamed in the first place of poisoning the wells during the Black Plague? They were blamed because the surrounding society thought that they are being affected and ill and taken ill in much less numbers than the general society.
Right.
And in some places they were right. And why were they right? Because Jews wash their hands before they eat, and because they have rules regarding cleanliness and regarding personal family relations, etc., that come to keep them healthy. And because Jews kept cleaner, they were less affected. And because they were less affected, they were blamed. Because look, they are, who is to be blamed? Those who do not get it. And it's the same thing is being said now regarding Israel. Why does Israel have less than 300 people dead, most of them old and sick anyhow, each of them dear to his family? It's a low number, but not to anyone who lost a loved one. Why do they have such a low number? They have such a low number because they prepared a vaccination, a medicine, etc., a very good health, full public health system. So they are to be blamed. They are the ones who are spreading it to the others. So there is a connection here. There is definitely a connection.
Yes. Maybe we have time for one last question, and if we can kind of segue a little bit into the reaction to the George Floyd case here, and I'm sure this has hit the news all over the world.
Of course.
rioting in America. It's reported that Black Lives Matter, in some sense, blames the Israelis for training American police.
Oh, please.
The Joseph Floshner asked a question along those lines, and so does Gabriel Brom. Do you see? Of course, it's we were just talking before that we're still very close up to this event. It's hard to get perspective.
It's not over.
But is anti-Semitism in the mix here? Gabe Brom also was asking about that.
Well, under the cover of demonstrations and riots, I don't have to tell you, you live in the United States, Jewish communities, synagogues, shops, etc., have been targeted and have been destroyed. And because Jews live in neighborhoods, it's easier to target a group of Jews. And there is this, it was all over the press and the radio in Israel that a rabbi took the Torah scrolls from a synagogue home so that they would not be damaged. Okay. So under this cover of general riots, demonstrations, etc., Jews were hurt, damaged, attacked, no doubt. But it is not specific. It's not specifically Jews. I don't have to tell you again. The riots and the damage is all over. What was also on the Israeli press, of course, is this accusation that the American police and the cruelty that sometimes policemen show against Black people, certainly in the horrible case of this Mr. Floyd, where the policeman is standing with his hands in his pockets while he's strangling a person. And they said that American police was trained by Israeli police. Well, what can we say? We can say that there are contacts among the two polices, but they they exist in order to face terrorism and how to find intelligence, good intelligence about terrorism, and against ISIS, not against people and not methods to kill people. The police here is not killing anyone, almost. So it happens here as well, but to a very low degree. So this is really, this is something that you really cannot swallow. There are contacts, but they are because of terrorism, a common struggle against terrorism, and finding common ways to have better intelligence.
Yes, Professor Dina Porat, thank you so much. I think we're out of our time today. This has been excellent, as always. You've provided us many insights and raised some excellent questions for us to continue to pursue. I want to personally thank you.
Thank you.
On behalf of myself and of ISCAP. And I want to thank Ira Luberman for putting this together today.
Let me thank you on behalf of ISCAP as well. Thank you, Professor Porat and Professor Patterson, for putting together this very important webinar and letting us appreciate how so many of the past strands of anti-Semitism we can still see reverberate in these modern times around the coronavirus. And just want to let everyone know in the audience that we will be reconvening again on Wednesday. Dr. Jack Gauthier will be speaking on the sources of Israel's territorial sovereignty over Jerusalem and its historical homeland under international law. And I'll be at the same time, 11 a.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Israeli time on this Wednesday, June 10th. Thanks again for joining us, and I hope to see you all then.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
Be well.
Thank you, David, very much.
Thank you, Dina. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Leave.